Now it's time to bring back my co-host Jeff Small, as well as our next guest, a good friend of the income generation, Joann Regan, president of Financial Security Group, a retirement income store in Glendale, Arizona. Joann's been helping clients with tax, estate, and retirement planning now for over 30 years. Joann, it's great to have you back on the show looking all festive for Valentine's Day.
Well, Dave, thank you. It's great to be here, and happy Valentine's Day to you and Jeff.
Well, thank you, and same to you. So, okay, not everyone needs an estate plan though, right? Isn't it only rich people?
Absolutely not, Dave. Everybody needs to be thinking about estate planning, no matter if they are rich, poor, or anything, because estate planning doesn't just mean what happens to your things when you pass away, but also means what happens when you become incapacitated. And estate planning does encompass all of that. So I do think it's very important for people to be thinking about their estate planning just in case they get sick. You know, who's going to pay their bills, who's going to take care of things, who's going to make healthcare decisions, and also what is going to happen when it's distributed when they pass away.
So, Joann, great points. What is the greatest misconception for retirees that are married in their early 60s thinking about getting their will and trust done? What is the one question that they always seem to ask or have a misunderstanding about?
I would say the biggest misconception that I run into with my clients is they come in and they want to do a will. And they think that if they have a will, it doesn't have to go through probate. And they don't understand that a will, by its very nature, is a directive to the court, telling the court what they want to have happen. So all wills will go through probate. And people don't understand that. They think that just because they've done something, that it doesn't have to go through the court.
So what are some of the best ways then for couples, I guess, and everyone really, to avoid probate if that's one of their goals?
Well, there are many ways to avoid probate. Probably the most popular right now is people are doing revocable living trusts. And there is also a misconception about that. People think you have to have a lot of money to do a trust, and that's not true. It's just a vehicle to be able for people to pass their assets without going through the court. I mean, you can also do beneficiary designations, and there's other things people try to do, like put their assets in joint names with other folks and things like that. Those work, but a good estate plan is going to cover all possible contingencies, and I think that people need to look at that. That's really the important thing to look at.
Sure. And a lot of people don't realize, don't even need a living trust necessarily. If you've got an investment account or brokerage account, typically you can just do a transfer on death designation. Essentially name a beneficiary to that account just like you do an IRA, a 401k, life insurance, just about anything, right?
That's absolutely correct. Like I said, you can name beneficiaries on just about anything, but there are some exceptions. Estate planning can get very complicated if there's underage beneficiaries, beneficiaries with social problems, people that have children that have special needs. And so all of that has to be taken into account when you're doing estate planning.
And thus, that's where the trust comes in. So stay with us. We'll be back in a moment where we're going to ask Joann some really difficult questions about some of the biggest mistakes that she sees people making, mistakes you're going to want to avoid in your estate plan. Stay with us. We'll be back with more on the income generation. Welcome back to the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton, and I'm here today with Jeff Small and Joann Regan, president of Financial Security Group, a retirement income store located in Glendale, Arizona. So Joann, as promised before the break, please tell our Income Generation viewers and listeners, what are one or two of the biggest estate planning mistakes that you see couples making? Is mistakes that pretty much everybody watching or listening should seek to avoid?
Well, the biggest mistake that I see is people not planning at all. It always amazes me that I have folks come into my office and they're in their 70s and they haven't done any estate planning whatsoever. So I always congratulate them for making an important decision. The second thing that I see is people doing estate planning and not taking into consideration what happens if their first successor trustee or their personal representative can't act on their behalf. They don't appoint a backup. Or if their beneficiaries become ill and can't act. So those kind of
Mhm.
things are important. You have to go one step further in estate planning, not just, one person, but go further and make more contingencies so that everything will go according to your plan.
So Joann, besides avoiding probate, which we know is, a charge for assets that we have, what other documents should complete a good estate plan? What other things do you need besides a living trust that helps you avoid probate?
I think the most important document that every person should have is a financial power of attorney form in place. Because if you become incapacitated or you cannot make your own decisions, you want to allow someone to be able to pay your bills, take care of your assets, and make sure that everything goes according to your wishes. And if you don't have that in place, someone is going to end up having to petition the court in order to be able to take care of your things. And it's extremely costly and very time consuming. So planning is important in this instance. Having those documents in place are going to really save your family a lot in the long run.
Agreed. Healthcare surrogates are also very good too, or powers of attorney for healthcare. They complement the financial side of the equation. But when we look at what our clients have for assets, they have tangible assets, which really is real estate. They have intangible, which really is going to be their investment accounts. It could be their IRAs, their savings, their bank accounts. Do those things all need to be tied up into a trust to avoid probate, or are there other ways to avoid probate with some of those intangible assets?
Certainly. With intangible assets, you can always name a beneficiary. Although there are pitfalls in naming beneficiaries as well, because if something happens to a beneficiary, again, you don't have a backup, then it's going to end up in the court. So being thorough in your estate planning is going to be what's going to make it be successful. You really, really have to think through everything, and working with someone who is going to ask you the right questions and make sure that you think your plan all the way through is going to be what's going to make it work.
And a lot of times too, I'll see people saying, hey, we can fix this with the will. And they don't realize that the beneficiary designations actually supersede what's in the will. So if I have you, Joann, as my beneficiary, and the will says everything goes to Jeff, it really doesn't matter. Jeff may think he's getting it, but at the end of the day, you're getting it because the beneficiary designation supersedes everything else, right?
Absolutely. And that is kind of one of those really sad stories that I have to tell is that, I have a couple that came in. The gentleman had previously divorced, had never changed his life insurance beneficiary from his ex-wife to his current wife. And when he passed, the current wife thought she was going to be getting his life insurance, and come to find out it didn't go to her at all, and there was nothing that could be done. And that happens a lot. Those type of mistakes do happen when people don't review their estate plans. And that's what I want to emphasize also, is just because you do an estate plan doesn't mean you just put it in the top of the closet and never look at it again. It does need to be reviewed periodically and to make sure that everything is correct, because things do change, and you should make sure that you take those changes into effect when they happen, so that nobody gets in trouble.
So that's a great point, because a lot of attorneys, they write the documents and that's it, and they never follow up with the individual. In your practice, how often do you tell your clients that they should review all these legal documents?
Well, because we do a lot of other things besides just estate planning, we do tax work and we also do financial work.
Sure.
I always tell my client, anytime you walk in my door, bring your trust documents or your will documents with you and let's go over them. But if they don't come in for that, I do try to encourage them at least every other year to touch base with me so we can make sure that everything is still up to date.
Every 2 years. Wow, that's pretty often. I know most people don't do that. So Joann, once again, great having you here. Thanks so much for being here with us. And you stay with us too. We're coming back. We got more about estate planning. We're going to wrap it up and put a bow on it for Valentine's Day in a moment on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.